Hi, it's Kyle from Bitewing Games, and today we're learning how to play Iliad, designed by Reiner Knizia and published by us here at Bitewing Games. In Iliad, you're either playing as Hector of Troy or the Greek Achilles, trying to gain the favor of the gods. Throughout the game, you'll place a tile next to an existing tile. When a row or column is completed, the player with the highest valued pieces will select one of the two tokens, and the other player will take the leftover token. Some tiles have special powers, allowing you to shift your own or opponent's tiles in interesting ways. The point of the game is to win, and you win by collecting tokens for each of the 5 gods, or if you both collect tokens for all the gods, you win by having the most points. Let's quickly look at each of the tokens. There are 10-point tokens, which aren't associated with any of the gods, but are worth lots of points. There are tokens for the 5 different gods, 3 tokens for each of the gods, negative point tokens, and 2 marriage tokens. If you collect both marriage tokens, you earn no points, but it counts as a wild for one of the 5 gods. So if you end the game with just 4 of these gods, these 2 rings count as your 5th god. Let's take a look at the setup. Set out the mat, shuffle the success tokens in the bag, draw 5 tokens and place them face up next to the board. If you drew any negative tokens, set those aside and draw until you have 5 positive or marriage tokens. Return any negative tokens to the bag and give it a little shaky shake. Draw and place tokens all the way around the board. This should be randomized, so choose a starting point and work your way clockwise around the board until all remaining tokens have been placed. One player will play as the blue Hector, and the other will be red Achilles. Take tiles of your color, shuffle them, and create a face-down draw pile. You have 3 of each tile type, values 1 through 5, and 3 of the Dolos tiles. Each player draws 2 tiles and randomly places them on their color in the center spaces of the board. If your tiles happen to be identical, remove them and reshuffle so you have 2 different tiles. Each player draws a starting hand of 2 tiles, and you're ready to start the game. The player who most recently opened a book goes first. Rulebooks don't count, you nerds. On your turn, you're simply going to select one of your 2 tiles and place it onto the board. And then you'll draw back up to 2 tiles. Your opponent will place a tile, draw back up to 2, and back and forth, back and forth. When placing a tile, you must place it on your own colored space, and you must place it adjacent to an opponent's tile. After placing a tile, check to see if any rows or columns are completely filled. If it is, score for that line. To score for a row or column, add up the values shown on your tiles. The player with the greater sum total gets to select whichever tile they want, and the other tile goes to the losing player. So in this case, the red player has a total value of 5, and blue has a total value of 8. Blue will pick first, so they pick this 7-point tile. Red is given the negative 5-point tile. What happens if they tie? Well, let's say red places a 2 here, which closes off this column. Red and blue both have a value of 7, but since red was the active player, they get to choose first. So they take the 6, leaving the 5 for the other player. Now that sounds fine placing the tiles out, but the real fun comes in the special abilities in these different tiles. When placing a 1, you can reposition one accessible tile from your opponent. An accessible tile is one that isn't surrounded on all 4 sides. You must follow the normal placement of tiles when repositioning their tile. So I place my 1 here. I could reposition any of these tiles. I decide to move their 5 to this location. If I place a 2, I can move one of my own tiles to another location. Again, it has to be an accessible tile. So I could move my face down tile to this location, or my 5 to this location. The 3 allows you to swap one of the tokens you've already collected with one from the supply of 5 off to the side of the board. So after placing my 3 here, I could swap my negative 5 with a 10. When placing a 4, you can turn that tile face down. If you do, you select one of the adjacent tiles to also turn face down. So if I place my 4 here, I could turn my opponent's 5 face down as well. You take these actions immediately when laying the tile before scoring for either the row or the column. And you don't have to take the action if you don't want to, but you can't go back later and say, oh, I never took this action. It's kind of a now or never type deal. The 5 doesn't have any special ability, and this Dolos tile doesn't have any special action, but it does do something cool. it will count as the sum of the two adjacent tiles in that line. So when a column scores, it will count as the sum of the piece above and below it. So in this case, the column just got filled. Blue has a 4, 2, and 3. Red's Dolos is between the 4 and 2, so it's worth 6. So they have a 3, 6, and 1. Red selects the 8, and the blue player gets stuck with a -5. And you'll do the exact same thing when scoring a row, counting the two adjacent tiles. If a Dolos is on the edge of the board, it just scores for its one neighbor. So this Dolos is worth 3. And if it is next to another Dolos, it basically counts as a 0. So in this case, the Dolos is just worth 1 point. So on your turn, you'll place a tile. You'll choose if it's a 1 through 4 if you want to take the action. Then you'll score for any column or row. Draw back up to 2, and then your opponent will do the same. Continue back and forth until each of you have laid all of your tiles, completely filling in the board. And on to final scoring. Remember, the winning player will be the player who collected tokens from all 5 of the gods. If both players, or neither player, have collected all 5 of the gods, then you'll just score for whoever has the most points. But you won't score the value shown on every single tile. If you have multiple of the same gods, you'll only score the highest value of that god. Let's look at an example. The red player has the support of all 5 of the gods. The blue player only got support of 4 of the gods, but they collected both marriage tokens, which counts as another god. If blue hadn't collected the rings, red would have won the game outright. But since they both have the favor of all the gods, we count the values of the tokens. You only score for the highest valued token for each god, so these tiles won't score. The red player counts up all their points, positive and negative. Blue does the same. Red scored 30 points and blue scored 32. So blue wins the game. In case of a tie, add up your other god tiles and the highest value wins. And if there's still a tie, the player with a higher valued Zeus tile wins. And now you know how to play Iliad. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Until next time.